And now to the latest regarding whistleblower John Kiriakou. We're now learning that the Bureau of Prisons is making a concerted effort to stop Kiriakou from sending letters from prison. You may remember that Kiriakou was the first member of the CIA to publicly acknowledge that torture was an official U.S. policy under the Bush administration. In 2012, he was convicted for providing the name of an officer involved in the CIA's rendition program to a reporter. And he began serving a 30-month prison sentence in February of last year. Now, soon after, Kiriakou began writing what's been coined letters from Loretto, in which he communicates with his supporters and talks about his prison experiences. The letters, published on Fire Dog Lake, were very descriptive and often revealed the corruption and illegalities taking place behind prison walls. But in August of 2013, Kiriakou abruptly stopped writing after the prison administration informed him that he would be able to serve the final part of his sentence in a halfway house, but this was only if he agreed to stop sending the letters. However, the prison later broke its promise, and Kiriakou decided to resume his letter writing. And in his most recent letter, he wrote, "I have learned firsthand that the prison administration's greatest perceived threat is my freedom of speech." Now, earlier I spoke with Kevin Gostola, blogger at Fire Dog Lake. I first asked him why the Bureau of Prisons classified Kiriakou's letters as dangerous.
They've classified them as dangerous. These letters that firedoglake.com has been publishing since the middle of last year, they've been classified as dangerous to the prison facility in Loretto, Pennsylvania, because of his access to the press. I guess they marked it publicity. He obtained documents showing he had been classified for central inmate monitoring, and this means that they scrutinize him more heavily than other prisoners inside of the facility.
Right. And in his latest letter about rights, he said, quote, "The BOP is afraid of you knowing what the prison system is really like. They're afraid of the public disclosure, that they don't bother to follow their own rules. They're afraid that you'll learn that they can violate the law with impunity." Can you give some examples of how Kiriakou's letters illustrate this? What are some of the regulations that were being violated?
Well, what he was talking about was specifically how supporters of Kiriakou have been mailing him letters of support, trying to correspond with him. And what they've been having happen is their letters are opened, and then those letters are sent back to them. It appears that even one person had his taped back together shut, and then the letter came back to him, and he has no idea that Kiriakou's having his letters denied to him without Kiriakou even being notified of the fact that the warden of the facility is rejecting these letters. We've also got instances where legal mail is being opened, and I guess Kiriakou doesn't get a chance to appropriately challenge this. If it's legal or special mail, he's supposed to be able to watch the warden, open it, look at it, inspect it, and make sure that it's not threatening to the facility. And that hasn't happened, I don't think. And then the other thing is the email. He has email service, and it takes a while to send emails out and then receive them. But apparently he doesn't use it anymore, because when he sends emails, he finds that his conversations are being read by the officers, the staffers inside of the prison, and then they talk about it, and they'll come up to him and they'll say something to him about something his wife said, or they'll say something to him about plans that he might have. But one example is he was considering maybe going to do business or do some work in South Africa, and he said, well, someone came up to me and said, I'd be a great person, I could talk to you about doing business in South Africa. And he thought that was kind of freaky, and so he's decided to refrain from talking about anything on email.
Also, something peculiar is that his mail was only delivered on Mondays, which I find very interesting. What was the rationale in them relegating all of his mail to just one day of the week?
The rationale would probably be the same for all the other violations of his rights. The fact that he has broad access to the press, and I think they just want to take their time getting him letters, any correspondence he has incoming. And they don't want to be inconvenienced by the fact that he is someone who is very popular, a high-profile prisoner, and they don't want to say that he has more rights than anybody else in the facility, and in the process they're actually denying him his rights.
Right. Now, Kevin, in his August 30th letter, before all of this went down, before he stopped communicating, Kiriakou explained that he was forced to sign a memo from the U.S. Justice Department that stated he was legally obligated to clear everything he wrote with the CIA's Publication Review Board. But as it turned out, he wasn't actually legally obligated to do anything. Can you talk about how they intimidated him, essentially, into signing that memo?
Yeah, so according to a lawyer, this is illegal and unconstitutional, that you would have to submit your prison letters to the CIA's Pre-Publication Review Board. It has nothing to do with his time as an intelligence officer, so they also wouldn't have any material to clear. And essentially, he was sat down and he was ordered to sign this memorandum or this letter that said that he wouldn't send any letters out without giving them to the CIA's board to approve them for publishing. And actually, it seems he has been doing this. Even though he shouldn't be required to do so, he has been sending letters to the CIA. He sent one in December. We published a copy of this notice that came back to him that they had received his letter, and then in about a span of a month, they approved it. And I think that I haven't gone back to look at the postings at firedoglake.com, but I think it checks out that that December letter we did not put up at firedoglake.com until the middle or the early part of January, about the time that the CIA would have approved it.
Now, Kevin, as I understand it, Kiriakou submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for himself. That was last year. What was revealed in that FOIA request?
The revelation was that, in fact, he was designated for central inmate monitoring, which I have to tell you, you're supposed to be notified as a prisoner if you are given this designation. And according to the letter, if I read it correctly, Kiriakou was not informed.
Right. And of the 257 pages that he was able to obtain from that, there were 5 that were marked FOIA exempt, do not release to inmate. Do we have any idea what's being censored in those 5 pages that they chose not to reveal to him?
Well, it would appear that somehow he was able to figure out the content, maybe because his attorney placed some kind of a request for that information and was possibly privy to it because of the fact that this person would be representing him legally. So I don't know. The information he put in the letter, he would have had to have some way of accessing the contents of those pages. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to describe passages from them as he does in the letter. So I don't think they managed to actually withhold any information from him like they had wanted to.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for all of your insight on this very important case. Kevin Gostola, blogger at Fire Dog Lake.